and overpasses. Directions change and you are different.
I'm Jay. I'm Tom. And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. Today, we're going to review a brand new album from an artist who hasn't been around in a decade. The Baptist Generals are back with an album called Jackleg Devotional to the Heart. Awesome album title, man.
Yes.
When I first saw this album title, I was totally intrigued, because whenever you see an album title like that, you're always thinking, oh, this might be something very hipster and indie, which this album is kind of hipster and indie.
Yeah.
So the Baptist Generals, in their old days, I guess, were more of they had kind of their acoustic guitar based, kind of jam band-ish, kind of like I would see them playing in bars, kind of have a drunken vocal style that's reminiscent to me, especially on this album, of Jeff Magnum of the Neutral Milk Hotel.
Definitely.
But it kind of a Titus Andronicus-esque sound in kind of their approach.
I was hearing that too.
But this album is a lot more polished, and to really talk about how this album was constructed, Tom, feel free to jump in here anytime. Now, my thought is, I know that the main songwriter here, Chris Flemmons, has spent years, almost like Fleet Fox's latest release, how they spent and reworked and scrapped songs and then rebuilt them and just tried to keep a really focused sound and make an album out of it. Chris Flemmons definitely was trying to do that. This has been in the works for years, and so now that we finally have it, when you finally get this end product, I mean, I kind of had high expectations after reading that. I wanted to know what this was going to sound like, and as soon as I put it on, it was very clear to me that every single sound on this album is absolutely intended and crafted for the listening pleasure of what this album is.
And it's cool when you can tell just from listening right away that was the case. And it really comes out mostly with the albums like this that have more complexities. In that regard, it reminded me of some of the stuff we've listened to from the Dirty Projectors.
Absolutely.
Just with how every beat, whether it's on or whether it's off beat, whether it doesn't even sound right, it still sounded right to the musician. And that's what's important to keep in mind with an album like this that has some kind of strange intricacies and eccentricities. There's a tongue twister for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
say
that's
that 3 times.
but that's all over this album. And another thing, you mentioned Neutral Milk Hotel. Another thing that kind of reminded me of that, not only in the vocal style and kind of that acoustic guitar-based style, but was also this artist's ability to weave in moods from the very whimsical and kind of goofy seeming to the very deep and profound and serious tones. Do it even within a song or between songs that are right next to each other and still make it feel natural.
To me, this is what you just described is the genius level of songwriting, and I feel like that is definitely a trait that I would tag with this album with, because these tracks start off as acoustic guitar songs with I think it's Chris Flemmons' vocals. I might be wrong on that, but the vocalist comes in and with the acoustic guitar, but then all these other instruments get built in. None of these songs follow some sort of formulaic structure. They're all over the place with how they build in their instruments, with where some sort of hook is, and really the guy's vocal patterns are what sells a lot of these songs. It's what makes them work. And to couple with that, the lyrics on this album are top notch. This album is very, very fun to dig into some of the lyrics, and I mean, some of them are very profound and deep, and to get into that, I mean, it really brings you into the music more and makes you realize how they're incorporating all these other instruments to change the mood and do all that, which I just thought was a really cool songwriting tactic.
And while the vocals, I agree, are kind of the center of it, with the rest of the songwriting and the instrumentals, you mentioned that they'll kind of ease into the song and sneak up on you, and before you know it, you're listening to this huge instrumental arrangement that really you're just like, how did I even get here?
With great dynamics.
And it's a very clever approach to songwriting, and he pulls it off well, but I think the one thing that really makes that work is that he's diversifying the instruments he's using. There's a lot of cool auxiliary percussion and just kind of odd sounds that come in, but they always feel in place. They're never thrown too much at you right up front. They're mixed to be kind of in the background and support everything else that's going on, rather than pull the focus away from the good things.
And I really wanted to highlight production as well, because I feel like this is an extremely well-produced album. Earlier when I said that every single sound on this album is extremely particular and chosen, I really feel like that is subtly exemplified in the production, because the instruments here, this was not meant to sound perfectly clean and pristine, and it doesn't, but it also doesn't sound completely lo-fi and garage, which I like that balance. I like it allows it to sound pretty and succinct and still have the authenticity of something that was just a raw cut from a garage. That's a special kind of balance. That's kind of hard to find sometimes. The other thing is, like I said, the vocals are a lot of like where the main hooks are in the songs, because the instrumental arrangement can be so complex at times. So when this guy's belting out his awesome vocals, the production on those vocals really matters. And I love how they made him sound like they recorded him in like a wooden box. It sounds like they put a microphone in a sauna and got this guy drunk and rushed him in there and said, just belt it out, man. And that's exactly what he did. I love how it sounds. It just gives it this authentic, intimate feel to a very large sound, which that expansiveness, it just magnifies the emotional effect of the instrumentation, of the vocals, melodies themselves, and of the lyrics. It's just the trifecta that just gives a very positive, resonation within, if that's even a word, within inside myself. So I really got into that. The other thing I liked is that this album was shaped very nicely. You had a lot of very quality tracks like Dog That Bit You, track 4, Turnunders and Overpasses, very coy play on words there. Track 5, Oblivion, which Tom and I picked both those two tracks, and then track 10, My Oh My. I know that you like that track as well. I just feel like this album is very balanced. It's a great straight through listen, and the closing track, Oblivion Overture, even wraps in strings and horns, which is kind of a bold move to change your sound right at the end of the album, but he pulls it off with just this eloquent mastery.
Because once again, it doesn't hit you all at once. No. He sneaks it in, lets it build, and you hear that first like honk of a horn, and you're like, oh, it's that? I haven't heard that much on this album. But then by the end of the song, it just feels natural. Obviously it also pulls from a song, Oblivion, that you hear earlier in the album, so it doesn't feel too unfamiliar.
That's absolutely true. I love how they connected that. I really feel like this album, just the scope of what they were trying to do just kind of knocked me off my feet. It took me a long time to really understand what was going on. However, that makes this more rewarding. And so the more I listen to it, the more I like it. And I've settled on an 84, which I think is a really solid score, a must-listen album.
I'm going to give it an 80.
So averages out to 82. While it could probably be a higher score, I imagine that Tom and I will keep coming back to this one. And we've agreed we definitely want to mark this as a must-listen because, first of all, it's this band's first appearance in 10 years. Plus, it's an album that was crafted in kind of what Velocities of Music is advocating is what we should be listening for when we listen for albums, is really solid, straight-through listens with, kind of experimental or at least progressive songwriting. This is cool stuff, and definitely, you guys should definitely check it out if you get the chance. Please, if you do, leave us a comment at www.velocitiesofmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesofmusic. As always, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and leave us a comment about what music you're into from 2013 that you'd like to see us review. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.
No doubts about